F1 racing is back. This is F1 at its modern era peak. This is what I imagined F1 to be like when I started watching last year. This is amazing. We got battles for first instead of Max winning by 20 seconds. We have battles for second instead of Perez winning by 0.5 seconds. And all around, I feel like the grid has gotten a lot more, I wouldn't say even, but more fair. Where now I am very excited to see what happens next week in Silverstone, which is also another great racing track. We are hitting the good racing tracks, and I'm again very excited. There's no other better time to be an F1 fan, except for right now, or maybe in like the 2012 season where they had the 7 world champions on the grid, but I was 4. Can't watch it back then. Now, starting off the race, we had Max on pole, Lando in second, George in third, and I'm pulling up right now, Sainz in fourth, Hamilton in fifth, Leclerc in sixth, Piastri 7th, Perez 8th, Hulkenberg with a good 9th place, and Ocon with a good 10th place. I found that with Aston Martin really just losing a bunch of time and performance over the past year, we're getting more bottom 5 teams coming into 9th and 10th place. Like Alonso, he qualified where did he qualify? Alonso qualified 15th. That's not a great time for Fernando. He just is not doing that great, nor is Aston Martin in general, with Lance Stroll, who is very questionable for even being on the grid right now. But I digress. I'm not on the grid either, so. Now, during the actual race, lap 1 had some very interesting takes. I had Charles Leclerc finishing 4th place. Lap 1, he hits Oscar Piastri and breaks his front wing. So, Charles Leclerc had to pull into the pit lane, and replacing your front wing is not a fast task. It takes a while. So now he's in 19th place. Don't ask me how Sargent is still behind. I will never know how Sargent manages to be worse than people who are already pitting. But I digress. I'm not on the track either. Now, the rest of the race was pretty boring until the end, but there were a couple interesting points. Like lap 20, Alonso hit Zhou Guanyu during a braking zone, and ended up giving Alonso a 10-second time penalty. This made a terrible race worse, dropping Alonso from a qualifying position of P15 all the way down to P18, which is not that great for. Speaking of Alonso, the Alpines during lap 34 were fighting each other for a place with Alonso ahead. And after a while, they realized, hey, let's use the power of friendship to take over Alonso. And they had this sick overtake that hopefully I can try and show on screen here, but I don't know if I can find it again. But I really enjoyed that. Now, that was all the interesting stuff in the first 50 laps. The first 50 laps, very boring, nothing interesting. But when Max Verstappen, who is winning the race by 7 seconds at this point, showing his utter dominance as he did last year, when he went in for a pit stop on turn 50 or lap 52, he made a mistake where his left back tire got stuck on, so he had to wait an extra second to get that on, and then Lando was in the pit lane at the same time, so he couldn't pull out, so he had a 6.5 second pit stop, if I remember correctly, which really closed down the gap with Lando. That went from a 7 second gap, over 7 seconds, down to a 1.7 second gap for Lando to catch up to Max. Max still had a almost 2 second gap between him and Lando, so he still had an easy race, but then he locked up going into a turn on the couple laps afterwards, really giving Lando a chance to get close. It was a crazy battle for first place for 12. It was crazy. I really enjoyed it as a Lando Norris fanboy. I was cheering for Lando the entire time. Now, during the battle, Lando may or may not have gone out of track limits a couple times, giving himself a 5-second time penalty on there. Not that great. Now, that wasn't all the problems during that part. Max also had some issues. He was having some questionable moving during the braking zones, which ended up having Lando trying to call him out, but I don't know if that's even that illegal. It didn't even look like he was moving that much. Well, I want to be on Lando's side. Max was probably fine. But later, Max, going into, I believe, turn 3, Max we had Lando going on the outside, which I will be honest, he had some space between him and outside. But then Max kind of just steered into him. Lando did have more space on the outside to go, but Max also has a history of doing this to people, where he just turns into them trying to get a better turn, expecting them to move out of the way. But I do think it was Max's fault. I do think Lando did have space. I think both of them were probably on the wrong. This punctured Max's back left tire. That back left tire is in a lot of trouble. And damaged one of Lando's front right tires. Well, that would be fine. Lando then tried to get past Max, where Max just shoved him to the outside and made him run through the grass, making his damaged tire, I believe, punctured. That's where I have a problem here. Max had no right just to push him out of the grass. He was almost out of the race with the puncture. They had the entire racetrack basically catch back up, and Max should have let Lando go past because Lando's car had no visible damage. Lando should have been able to go outside on the outside and get around him, but Max moved to the side. That was where it rubbed me the wrong way. As with all of that interesting stuff happening on lap 64, lap 64 of the race was when all that happened. This led to George Russell taking first place, which it came Canada. Was it Spain? Yeah, Spain. It came Spain backwards, where Russell Russell got pole, and then Max won, and Max got pole, and Russell won now. Now, they had Russell, Sainz, Piastri after lap 64. In lap 65, Oscar Piastri had a outside overtake on Carlos Sainz, giving him P2 and some great points for McLaren and a good finishing position for a second-year driver. Now, that was basically all the interesting things that happened during the race. But let's see how the race results ended. We had Russell P1, Piastri P2, Sainz P3, like I said. Hamilton got P4, props to him. Verstappen got P5 still, because after that incident, Verstappen pit, got onto soft tires, set the fastest lap, and had a 10-second time penalty, but his teammate was stuck behind the Haas.
Nico Hulkenberg.
So he didn't have to worry about anything because they were 15 seconds behind him to begin with. Also, the incident on lap 64 also caused Lando Norris to retire his car. I think he just rage quit, which, again, not the best thing to do. He could have at least gotten some points, I'm sure, if he finished that race. But I guess he doesn't want to win the World Drivers' Championship that bad. And now, you might recall me saying that Max had the fastest lap. That was until the final lap of the race. Fernando Alonso set the fastest lap to take Max's 1 point. That was the results: Russell, Piastri, Sainz, Hamilton, Verstappen. Right? These results. My picks, I had 3 people right in the top 5. Not in the right spot. I had nobody in the right spot. But I had 3 people right. And I will say, without any incidents, I think I might have gone 4 for 5 on correct positioning too. I had Verstappen P1, Norris P2, Piastri P3, Leclerc P4. I do think that might have happened if Piastri and Leclerc didn't run into each other and Max and Norris didn't run into each other. But you never know. Maybe Piastri hit Norris in a different universe. But I had Hamilton P5. I got Verstappen right, Piastri right, and Hamilton right. All of them were in the top 5. And that's what I'm counting because I suck at it. I suck at this apparently. Now, you might be wondering why I said I think Leclerc would have gone P3 if he was still in the race. Leclerc dropped all the way down to P19 after his incident on turn 1, lap 1 with Piastri. He ended the race in P11, just outside the points. If Verstappen retired, or had a bigger time penalty, or even had another bad pit stop, Leclerc could have finished in points. Well, that is all I really have from this race. This race was very, very fun. One of my favorite races. I feel like I say that a lot now, but again, I think this has been a great season so far. I am looking for Norris to make a comeback and win a couple races this year, but the way he's looking right now, I'm not that great on him right now. But so I'm a Piastri fan, not a Norris fan. Still support him, McLaren, but I'll see you all there. Comment below if you think Max was in the wrong or Norris was in the wrong and why you think that. I think it was kind of both of them. Both of them were at fault. I feel like that's always the right answer. But can't argue with the stewards giving Max a 10-second time penalty while Lando got out of the race. I do feel like that's... Well, I'll see you all in the next video about Silverstone. Another great race. See you all.